Going to Jerusalem. This story is significant in so many different ways. Think of this. Paul is leaving the Aegean Sea area for the last time. When he came to this area, he had a small band of men. There were no churches, no Christians. Paul himself was a little bit strange and was not well received. He had before him, he had battle, he had persecution, he had riots, he had all kinds of problems, everything that happened. He goes into this area as a pioneer, and it is a battle the whole time. Now, so many years later, this is him leaving this area, and it's like a victory march. Everywhere he goes, people are gathering together. They have to see Paul one more time. They are crying because he will never come back. It's a grand victory march out of this area. He has done so much for it. Things that have come down to us today. He's carrying money to go to Jerusalem, but he's made a point that he himself is not carrying the money. There are men from each of the churches, each of the areas, that are carrying this money down. Very wise. Paul does not want anyone to mistake that he's going to take any of this money. But on top of that, these men that are traveling down to Jerusalem with this money will be able to go back home and tell on how the money was received and how it helped the people there. A very good thing. Now, this particular trip is where Luke once again joins the team. I just find that interesting because I've always thought of Luke being with them the whole time. But no, it was during the second missionary journey that Luke joins them, but only goes as far as Philippi and then stays there. Everything else that happened on that second missionary journey, all that traveling around, the riots, all the churches, finally going back to back home for a while, and then going to Ephesus and going around to Corinth, all of that, Luke was not with them. But now, as Paul is leaving the area, Luke joins him one more time and then travels with him as they go. I was on one of my trips away from Israel. I happened to have a seat on the plane where I could look down at the ground. And we were flying low enough, and it was a beautiful day. We were literally flying along this very same route that Paul took. I just the whole time, my mind was just seeing that boat going between those islands, just going south on this very same route. It was a thrill. A lot is made about the time that Paul was at Troas, that long sermon all through the night, and the young man falling out of the window. Well, you have to remember that all the people there met in house churches all around the area. There was no church building. Now, they were a church, but there was meeting all over the place. So a special occasion like this, they all came together, and they just didn't want Paul to leave. But when he did leave, he sent the people away in a boat going kind of around a little peninsula, and Paul walked across it. Now, it wasn't a difficult terrain, but it was 25 miles long. I've always wondered, why did Paul want to be alone for that 25 miles? No one knows. Maybe he was contemplating what the Spirit of God had told him, that this was going to be a rough trip, that there were trials waiting for him in Jerusalem. I don't know, but it'd just be interesting to find out. He gets on the boat there, and of course goes to the area of Ephesus and meets with the elders, and goes on down at different ports. Finally arrives at Caesarea. He's received into the home of Philip. And it's been noted by many people that here is Philip, one of the seven deacons. And his fellow deacon, Stephen, had been martyred, killed, under the authority of Saul, who is now called Paul, the same man that Philip is now receiving into his home as a dear brother. Oh, a picture of the grace of God. While he's there, it's Agabus that gives a prophecy that Paul is going to go through trials when he goes in Jerusalem. Note this, 15 years before, Agabus gave another prophecy about a famine. Paul and Barnabas were up in Antioch, and so the church there took an offering and gave it to Paul and Barnabas to take to the Christians at Jerusalem. That was 15 years before. Now another offering has been given, and Paul and a group of men are taking it to the Christians in Jerusalem, and it's Agabus that gives another prophecy. I just find that interesting. With both trips where money is involved, this prophet is there to give a very important prophecy. While Paul is there, he quotes Jesus to say it's more blessed to give than receive. It's been noted that nowhere in the Gospels does Jesus say these words. But you have to understand that the Gospels had not yet been written. Paul was not quoting Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John here. None of these books existed. It was just common knowledge that Jesus said those things. And this is a good illustration of what John said when he said that Jesus did so many things and said so many things that the books of this world couldn't contain it all. Well, here is one place where Jesus said these words. Paul quotes them, but it's not recorded in the four Gospels. Paul then goes on to Jerusalem, and the next couple of stories tell everything that happens there. But notice this, that this is Paul's last trip to Jerusalem. This is the last one. He'll never come back again. He goes in with an entourage of people taking an offering to the Christians, and when he leaves, he'll leave under a large military guard. He's going there to celebrate Pentecost. It's interesting. 25 years before, or thereabouts, it was during Pentecost that the Spirit of God fell upon His people. Now this is 25 years later, and Paul is there to celebrate this same festival. 25 years. What all has happened in that 25 years? Amazing. Well, come back when we give you more insights on the story.